Yeah, recording.
Yeah. So our first question, like number of square full arrays. We are given an array of non-negative integers. The array is square full if every pair of the adjacent elements, their sum is a perfect square, and we have to return number of permutations of A that are square full, and two permutations A and A2 differ if and only if there is some index I such that this A of I not equal to A2 of A1 of I not equal to A2 of I. So like if we look at this example, if you sum these to 9, which is a perfect square, again 25, this is also perfect square, this is also perfect square, and this is also perfect square, and it is following this condition also. I mean, at ith position, here is something else, and here is something else. So these are the two valid.
What is that condition? Okay, so the two different arrays, E1 and E2. Okay.
Yeah, like I mean, at the same index, the element should be different. Like at 0th index, it is 1, at 0th index, it is 70.
But that's not the same with the first index, right? Yeah.
This is one, yeah. What is this then? Two permutations if and only there is some index such that A1 of I not equal to A2 of I. I don't know why then, but this last one is different, right?
Yeah, it might
No,
be.
that means at least one index has to be differ, he's saying. I think only then we get different permutation, right?
Only one index, not every index should be there. At
Some
least
index,
one.
yeah. Any index.
Yeah, at least one.
That's fine, yeah.
One clarification. So I didn't understand, like in the examples they've given 18, 17, 17, 8, 1, but the input was 117, 8, right?
Yeah, but if you club these two, you have to generate a permutation out of it such that if you club the adjacent two numbers, that should be a perfect square. But
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Got it. So you have to make ones that are giving that. Okay, got it.
Perfect. Like these two are perfect square, and again 8 plus 17 is a perfect square. Yeah. And coming to this, there is only one, like 2 to 2 itself.
Yeah.
2 plus 2 is 4, 2 plus 2 is 4. Yeah. And yeah, and length is less than equal to 12 when array element can be 10 raised to the power 9 at max. Yeah. So it's again a brute force solution, like backtracking only, right? Like generate all the possible permutations. Wherever you find that you are not fulfilling the condition, you come out. I mean, you prune out or you backtrack that branch, something like that.
Yeah, but it won't be a brute force, right? It will be.
Yeah, slightly optimized if you prune some of them.
Okay, if you don't cache it, then it will be a brute force, right? Okay. Makes sense. So, but anyway, we still have to find the permutations, correct? And because in order to satisfy this condition, AI I is not equal to A2I, if you form all the permutations, and as you said, if we look for the square fullness of adjacent elements, then we just take those permutations into our results and return them, right? Yeah, it's just the count we have to return. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So brute force is like just like generating permutations and checking the conditions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whenever you are actually generating a condition, at that time itself you could check. So that will be a slightly better brute force. Yeah.
On the fly itself, yeah.
Yeah, if they are square full, then only you go ahead, or else you don't even go ahead in the recursion. You just prune it from there, as you said. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, it's like a permutation problem. We have a permutation problem, right? Backtracking. So there some more conditions is adding.
Yeah. That is what I was also think of.
Yeah, generating permutations and pruning based on the given condition.
So possibly some sort of pre-processing with every number. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, every number with every other number which will give a sum equal to which is a square. So if we do some processing and keep a hash map, I'm hearing a lot of echo actually.
Okay, let every other muted. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So wondering if it would help to get some processing done with a hash map of number and all the other numbers from the given array that give a solution of a square, and then that way you can go picking neighbors
Your
from.
voice is a little bit cutting and then coming.
Let me drop and join again.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I think C dropped out, right? Yeah. So one way is like we can sort it to avoid the duplicates kind of, right? So that
Yeah,
we
let's see
can take care.
what she is about to say. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Yeah, wondering if that will help. Oh, again there is echo. Sorry. Yeah.
no.
Maybe Shashank, you muted for some time. Let her speak, and then we'll again unmute. Maybe just follow it that way.
Yeah, probably you guys understood what I was saying, right? I wonder if we create a hash map of key equal to one of the numbers. I mean, not one of the numbers, like all the numbers in this given map, and then the value is a list of all other numbers from the list, which will actually give a summation with the key. Which will be equal to the square. So then, when we are permuting, every time you pick up a number from the key list, you'll just pick up the next number to it from this given list. So that way, some computations can be avoided, I think.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
so
that
you're
would be
basically.
one way of doing it, right? So it's like it will be converted to a graph problem.
Yeah, somewhat like a graph is how I'm
Yeah.
imagining. But I don't know. I'm not doing it, so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. There might be a way to do it.
Yeah.
Because generally these permutation problems, when we see a permutation problem, we try to follow the permutation, backtracking pattern. But that is also one way which will be maybe easier also to do, like the BFS way something. I think I've seen some problems, someone solving the problems that way too. Yeah.
And yeah, that makes sense.
Can someone explain the problem?
Yeah.
178. I
So
don't get it.
the array of numbers is given to you, and you have to generate the permutation such that the sum of the adjacent two numbers should be a perfect square in that array. Like 8 plus 1, 9, 9 is a perfect square. 17 plus 8, 25, 5 is a perfect square. And even this is a perfect square, this. But make sure at least one index between these two arrays should differ. Like if here is 1, here should be 17. I mean, any other number, not 1, other than 1. So you have to generate how many such valid permutations you can obtain.
It's kind of like a sliding window permutations kind of combination, right? You
What
have
is,
to, you have a limitation of 2, right? 2 permutations.
limitation I didn't get. Like you can, 2 is
No,
like,
it's a,
okay,
we have, because we have 2 permutations, right? A1 and A2 differ only in some index. And and adjacent should be, when you add the 2, it should give some, right?
Perfect square. Some should be a perfect
square.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that case, we will pick 2, 2, 2, right? So it's like sliding window, or?
Okay, you're keeping both the pointers initially here and then right?
Yeah.
Shift the right pointer, and
Yeah.
you will check that this forms. But how
Mhm.
will you, let's say, if 8 and 1 is forming a perfect square, how will you take care in sliding window? Because
We can change the orders, right?
you can change the orders.
Yeah, we can sort it and then we can uh, run it like that, sliding window only. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, you're thinking loud. I got it. Yeah, that might be, but
It's not good.
Also, perfect square, every time did you end up actually checking, doing an implementation for perfect square?
yeah, you have to check, right? So you
Mhm.
add them, it's a square root multiplied by itself.
Oh, you can use the math dot square root instead of doing the root. Okay.
And that
Or
is
you
the
Yeah,
can
only
you'll
way, a quicker way to do, right?
binary search also you can use to get the root and then multiply it.
Use a binary search, but
Before finding the square root of a number.
so the brute force way will be to iterate it each one, right? And then get all the permutations using 2 for loops or something, correct?
yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
correct.
get all the permutations and check if the condition, the square full condition is satisfied. And if it is satisfied, then consider those
Inside the for
permutations.
loop, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is a. And in fact, he's
And
trying to
then
actually elaborate on that only. Use the same brute force, because for creating a permutations, if you say it's a brute force, you will use a backtracking, correct?
Mhm.
So he's saying that if I can cache on or memorize the top-down approach, then there itself I can check if it's the permutation is a square full permutation, then I can increment my count.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that is more intuitive way of doing it. But even RK said about you storing all the values in that hash map, right? Like an
Yeah.
adjacency list, and then you go in a graph way. So that might be also one way of doing it.
Doing this.
Yeah.
So mine was like just the normal permutation, what backtracking we are doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sorting and just checking the condition whether it suffices or not. Right.
How does the sorting help for you?
Sorting helps, like I'll check two consecutive numbers first, right? Like if
Oh,
yeah,
if they are equal, you will ignore. Okay, got it.
Yeah, if it's same,
Hmm.
also he doesn't want to have the duplicates. Wants to take care of it.
Imitation. Okay, got it.
so yeah,
And so, what's the time complexity in this case?
it will be exponential,
Hmm.
right? Because sorting will be in log n, and on the top of it, I'm using backtracking. So
Okay,
branches will be
but if you use that visited one, the way you are doing it,
okay.
so that's the memorization, sort of
Uh,
memorization, right? So
yeah,
it might reduce instead of exponential. It might be something like an n square, or no.
should be right. But yeah, I'm saying from permutation time complexity, like generally we have. So by visiting, you are making sure that you won't take that branch, right?
No,
yes,
but you still have to do a DFS, right? Yeah, okay. It might be exponential, correct.
Yeah,
I
it
I
won't
think
be.
if you are taking visited array, then you don't need to sort it, right? Like we can check it.
No, no, but how will you check these duplicates? Adjacent, I mean, same numbers will be closer, right? I mean, adjacent.
Yeah, anyway, the solution is going to be a huge time complexity. So even doing sorting actually is not going to
Impact,
much
yeah.
of a difference, right? Yeah. But what I think what he's saying, Karthik saying is also point, right? So if we are using, we don't have to do that, right? If we are keeping a caching of that visited array using the visited array, that should be. No, but your implementation might have to be tweaked, right?
Yeah, this one I was checking this
Yeah.
part. It will hit Yeah.
It won't give you the correct answer. Yeah. So for that, you'll have to use a different way to implement that.
How are you going backtracking? Like in the for loop, you are always
This
taking.
helper function I'm creating, okay?
Okay.
And this is the visited array in this, and this is like normal. What you say, the terminating condition. What we do in permutation, if the length of original list output is equal to length of nonce, you just copy everything. And
But you just have to take the adjacent element sum, not the
but
whole.
the length won't change, right? If this is 3, this will be 3 only. Permutation is only, right?
Okay, let's walk through your solution and then we'll see if there are more solutions.
Yeah.
It looks a very different way of doing it. What are you doing?
So I'm just going.
Can you come from the beginning of that first signature function? Yeah.
Okay, suppose before that, I'm actually confused. What is the expected? I thought we have an existing array, and we are just checking whether each index is a square full index. And if all of the indices are that, we return true or false. But this is something different.
Yeah, so if see the input is 117.8 what is given. So we need to find all the permutations of these input. And then when we find a permutation, we need to see if each and every permutation, the adjacent ones of that particular permutation, they are squareful. So if you see the explanation, it shows two permutations, 1817 and 1781. So if I add 8 plus 1, for 1 plus 8, it is 9, it is squareful, and 8 plus 17 is a 25. So that is squareful. So that is one permutation. Second permutation is exactly the reverse way of it. Right. So 17 plus 8 is also upon this one. And to satisfy that A1I is not equal to A2I, if you look both of them, if you go for A1, in this case, if you consider that is the first array or the first permutation and it's I is 0. So A1 0 is 1 and A2 0 is 17. So they both are not same. So it means we have to have two distinct permutations. That is what it says.
So, Shashank, are you like generating all the permutations and then checking in the tracking?
I think that's what is walking through the whole solution. So let's go and see what he has to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just asking because we were discussing the time complexity. So if it is like all the permutations, then it will be like n factorial instead of 2 raised to n.
Yeah. So the bigger will be without using a memoization, it will be n factorial, right? So he's trying to use some memoization. So let's see what he is doing. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
So this is our, resultant array, and I'm creating a visited array of length of size of the array, and I'm sorting it, and then calling the helper function in which I pass the sorted array. Let me close this. Here, this is my out list. Sorry, the interior, what do you say, transient list, which will store the values out, where we'll check if out equal to this, and rest will your final one. So you go here and in a helper function, so you check if the output and the original nums length both are same, then just you copy everything into your result array, final array. Now go through each of the elements. If you find that if it's already visited, you don't do anything. And this is just for checking the duplicates, right? If it's, if both of them are equal, previous and current, and it's already been visited, then you just skip that, right?
Oh, so you do it for I greater than 0 in that case, correct?
Yeah, I greater than 0.
Okay.
And this is your, at least 2 lengths should be there, right? Because they are asking for adjacent. And this is what last 2 elements I'm picking, -2 and -1, and taking the root of it. If the root of this, if this is not equal to this, then again you continue, because that's not going to form a perfect square.
Correct.
Go ahead.
What is the condition out of -1 out of -2? And this you are comparing with the same.
No, this is the int part of that I'm taking, because if it is a perfect square, then without int and with int, both of them will be same, right? But if there is a floating value, then it won't be equal to int part.
Okay.
And if it is greater than 1, then again what you take, like the previous one and the current element you take the root of it and just check whether this is equal to this or not, right?
What is your out actually? The result.
This is the temporary array what we use. This is the out, in which you will be appending the numbers fulfilling the conditions.
So if in your out, if you have just one element, then whatever your current index is, you have that element and then add it to the array. But if you have like already two elements, then you check the existing last numbers.
Yes.
Okay.
But then why you have to do that on line 17? What you're doing for 2? Because you're already doing that on line 19, right?
Yeah, I am also thinking looks like redundant, right?
Yeah.
It seems like that.
You can comment that and try running.
No, I don't think so. It will, because there's some reason, right?
It might be having some reason. I also thought while at least 2.
At least we'll know what test case is failing.
Then it's awesome. That was redundant then. Yeah.
No, because if you see the time complexity is giving 5.09%, right? And 4,148 milliseconds.
Earlier also it was somewhat this only.
This is like a
uncomment
brute force, right? So it will be like this, and we are looking at the n factorial time complexity.
I think same time. It's same like couple of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's better to ignore it only.
Okay. No problem.
Delete it, don't comment.
Might be some early exit. I mean, some what you say if 2. Why? Okay. And this like if you have done with that number, you just mark it that you have visited and you append it, what you say, that particular element and go for the next. I mean, recursively go for the next call. And this is what we are popping it out, right? And once we are done with that element, you just mark it again unvisited, so that you can use it.
Well, okay. In that case, I have that C++ version, what we do for permutation template. Okay, the normal one. And if I use it in a slightly different way, so that gives a better time complexity. Sorry, in the sense,
even Shashank's code is exactly what we use for permutation.
Yeah. So I don't know why it's not actually giving that better time complexity there. At least the lead code time complexity, right?
Because C++ is anyway faster than Python.
No, but actually when it compares the percentage of submissions.
Yeah. That's
not comparing.
Are you able to show the full screen?
Yeah, but do you use some kind of memoization for this task? Or not?
I don't think so, right? He's not. It looks like he's using visited, but visited he's keeping track only for creating the permutation.
The current element which
I'm not getting that maybe.
Are you able to show the full code? Maybe that full screen thing.
Krishna, can you post this solution?
Yeah,
I don't get it. Why did you sort it? Sort the array. I don't get that.
Sorting is to avoid the duplicates, right?
But they are still in array, right? Even if you sort, they will be next to each other. The same one will be next to one only, right?
Next to one. But how will you suffice this condition then?
So the idea is basically you store in your visited array what all elements you are doing your backtracking. So think of it like one node which like children are being explored in that branch if you make a tree out of it. So if there are two elements, suppose 1, 2, 2, 3. So when you visit 2, you explore, like after 2, you'll visit 2, 3 and see all the permutations, and then you backtrack. When you backtrack, you pop that element out of the visited array. So now your visited array is not having that 2, and you move to the next 2. But when you move to the next 2, you do not want to repeat whatever operations you did with previous 2. So if I've already visited previous 2, I would not go for that next 2 on the same level. So it's that idea.
I think so. This implementation is a normal implementation, because
normal.
the same implementation if you do for any permutation, because the C+ implementation is almost the same, but still I'm getting a better time complexity. I don't know why you are not getting it.
Maybe.
Yeah, but
somebody shared in the chat.
So she's asking, can you actually copy that in the notepad and show, because it's not maybe
under the bottom one of
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe Python people have actually submitted better solutions, and therefore it is not allowing this solution to get a better time complexity. Yeah.
So, are you able to see?
She wants a complete view.
Because when we see the second half, forget what's your first
Yeah,
half.
yeah.
Is it possible to get a complete?
You just copy it in a notepad.
It's a notepad. Shall I shrink it?
Oh, you are not sharing your notepad.
Oh, I'm not sharing.
No, you are sharing your LeetCode screen, right?
Here also complete code. I don't think so. Yeah. Shall I shrink?
You allow to can reduce your font size.
Yeah, this is good. This is good.
Okay.
Good, thanks.
Yeah. No
So,
problem.
are you creating a new out? Is what I was trying to check. Because you do out.append and then you do an out.pop after calling the helper backtracking. Okay.
Yeah. One optimization you could do is you are using this res, which is a least of least or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could use just a counter. You don't need that, because at the end you are just returning the length of that res.
Oh, yeah.
So if you do that optimization, because creating that also will take a lot of time complexity, correct?
Yeah, it will be O of n.
Yeah.
Multiply by O of n.
And you just return the counter.
But will that be so straightforward?
Yeah, it will.
Let me try in the.
But it will give you error, right? You are doing res append and then immediately.
Yeah, I'm going to remove
error. Delete that line, res.append.
Yeah, you cannot compile it in Notepad for sure.
Yeah.
It's in the Notepad.
Yeah.
Didn't realize.
So this one I'll do this and count. I'll have to pass here.
No, res you still need, but you don't have to append it. You still have to store it temporary list. Otherwise, how will you compare against the length?
So if he is moving ahead, it should be fine, right? As long as
this is out. Res is the final one, which is containing out.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
But there will be some conditions you need to take care.
So here, yeah, I think this here what it will happen. What should I count and pass? Okay. And I think sounds good. Let's see.
Count should be a global variable, right? Instead of passing it in the function. Yeah, like you cannot change it in your stack. Otherwise, when you come back, it will be 0 again. I think.
I should use here count and non-local I should declare.
The global variable and then increment it.
No. Put there self dot count, otherwise it shows error.
No, it's
Put
within
there
the
self
same.
You can do non-local count also inside
That is what I was non-local.
in the helper function.
Here itself.
Declare it as a non-local count. No, it's a single keyword, non-local.
Okay.
But just declare it, then you can use it as is. So in the first line, no, not here. On line number 8, like when you enter the function, not in the arguments, in the code, helper
Okay.
code. Yeah, non-local count. Yeah, and just remove this non-local from the line number 11.
So dynamically,
That's it. Yeah.
then I have to.
You don't have to copy it now. You need to remove it. Yeah.
What is the difference between non-local keyword and global keyword?
So this will be like a helper function is taking this count from the so this is like a sub function, right? Which is defined under the main function. So it is like saying that I'll be using that variable from my main function.
Okay. So global has to be out of all the classes, right?
It should be defined under this function inside which this helper function is defined.
Yeah.
So it is like a function within a function.
Okay. So if I think this is maybe you need to tweak more. Okay. Let's do that offline. Okay. But I think if you do that change, because that is the only change I saw in your code and my code. So then actually it will be a better time complexity. And let's see if we have some other one. What happened? We lost him. Let's give him a couple of minutes. So you have any other solution, Deepali, you want to share?
There is one graph solution, like graph LeetCode people have, but
RK was also saying that, yeah. So
Yeah.
you guys have anything to share? So in the meantime, he comes back.
So in the solution explanation, they are saying it's n raised to n and not n factorial.
So n raised to n is almost n
raised to n, right?
Yeah.
N raised to n and n factorial is same.
Yeah.
Is it?
N raised to n and n factorial both are same.
Yeah, both are same. Like
Yes.
n
N
factorial.
factorial is what? N into n into n into n times, right? That's why n raised to n. Oh, I mean, no. It's 4 into 3 into 2 into till 1.
N factorial will be smaller than n raised to n, right?
No, upper bound for n factorial is n raised to the power n. Yeah, n factorial is smaller than n raised to power n, but if you see the graph, that goes more above than n factorial.
N raised to n.
So yes, 0 I passed.
Where are you saying the solution that we saw and the solution that LeetCode has is different? They are you making a graph.
Yeah.
What we discussed is permutations.
Yeah. So that this is a generic template what we use for permutation, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe the way you were explaining in that SD skills last session, so that sort of permutation also might work.
I think that's what Shashank did.
Mm-hmm.
Why it is taking so much of time to compute?
There might be a test case which actually has a long input list, right? Yeah.
But is it given like TLE or something?
Oh, it got reduced. Thanks, Santosh. That count variable was really taking time, I think.
How much did it got reduced to?
It got like, no, it was 440 that time, at least 7,000 ms, 700 ms.
No, but still there might be a better way to do it, seems right. Okay.
That was taking off, what you say?
Didn't reduce much, right? It's like about 1 second. Now it's getting at 3.7 seconds.
Yeah, so main time consuming task is the backtracking, right? What we have changed is appending part, which is like O of n.
Yeah. This also reduced because earlier I was encaching everything into res, and that was taking off n time to again count the
That
length.
is why we don't have like significant reduction because main logic is still the same.
Yeah, that's.
And also your out actually is the input parameter, right? So for your out, what you're trying to do, you are appending and then popping out. Means backtracking.
Yeah, that is the line 28.
Yeah, but instead of that, you could have kept the array, whatever was is as same, and use the index inside that to do all these things. So that also, because every time you reduce your input, that is also an overhead, no?
Or removing
And putting, you're creating a new array always. Yeah, there might be some things, and then this might be reduced. I don't know. I'm just thinking loud.
Can we also discuss the time complexity of the graph solution? It's given in the solutions, the second one.
So that is like something 2 raised to n factorial. Sorry, exponential,
yeah, I didn't
right?
understand how they are saying n square 2 raised to n.
How did they do it? Can you?
Yeah, so graph, at least I haven't read the solution yet, but the way I'm imagining is that for every number, you come up with neighbors. Now, what are the neighbors? The neighbors are the ones that will actually pair up with the node to give you a perfect square. So if you pre-process this and keep, then you can work it out like a graph solution. So that was the idea, high level.
Yeah, that's correct. So what you can do, they are saying you do a DFS, right? First you form that adjacency list. Okay. So now you start with any of the node. So when you are actually starting, you will have to go from every node. So you start with one node, and then you go all the way down. Because you have an adjacency list, you will always find a perfect squarefulness always. And then when you find a full path, okay, of that particular size, so you can see that is one permutation. And then you keep on doing the DFS for all of the other nodes. Right. And then you keep a count. Yeah. It should be possible. And also only one thing I didn't follow there is the factorial, what they are using that particular array. What was that for? If you look at on the same solution on line 24.
Which line? It's empty.
The first solution or the second solution?
It should be the second solution. You are looking at whose screen is this?
Your mine.
Okay, Shashank, if you go down, this is the normal one, no? What you're doing?
No, this is. Oh, okay.
So if you look at this one, yeah, this is the one is the graph solution, no?
Yeah, graph and dynamic.
Yeah, DP and yeah, both together. So here, if you look at line 24, they are using that factorial. Okay, so they are using all these. They're actually creating the factorials from 1 to 20. Okay, and they are using it somewhere to optimize some portion. I don't know what that is.
20.
Because if you just imagine the way RK was saying, you convert it to a graph, you find all the adjacency lists based on if the squarefulness of each and every node, and then you can straight away do a DFS. And as long as you find the complete path of all the nodes in it, right? So that becomes one permutation.
Any reason why they put 20 there?
Maybe
Because 20
length.
itself is too much. Like, I mean, you will go beyond the, I think, your.
No, I think it's the length of the array is 12. And I don't know why exactly they are taking 20. Maybe that
in the
is.
problem description, did they have any condition?
No, I didn't see
It says
anything
A
like that.
length is under 12, right? And the
Yeah, actually, I kind of understood why. Because they are trying to formulate. So if you look at that first solution, what they are trying to do is they are trying to make a graph of each number which is connected to each of the other numbers. So if suppose my size of my array is n, then if I take one number, it will be able to connect to make n edges. So if you keep going till the end, it will be n into n into n into n times. So that will make it n to n. And you have to traverse through the whole all of the nodes, and then decide whether it's uh, this satisfying the condition for squareful array or not. And in the second example, they are using memoization, which is using the visited nodes. So if they have already visited some nodes, they are not revisiting those. So that is why the time complexity is reducing from n raised to n to 2 raised to n, because they are pruning those branches. Like, this is just a rough idea that I got. Just
right, that is correct. But when you see, when you do everything, okay, so your DFS is the same, correct? So you do the DFS, and then after DFS, if you go to line 33, after that you do some pre-processing. Sorry, post-processing. So DFS is where actually the memoization takes place. It does all that saving of time complexity and all those things. So they are using this factorial when you actually, if you can scroll down a bit, Shashank. Yeah, so if you see here, when your DFS is done, right, on line 31. So when you come down on line 33 to 34 to get to your answer, so if you see on line 36, you are taking that factorial into account. So what was that for? I didn't understand.
Yeah, I think I was going through it. So I think they are not taking care of repetitions, right? Anywhere in the code. So that will handle. So in the end, what he does is he does the answer divided by factorial. So what that will do is if there are multiple repetitions, corresponding number of repetitions, I think they will divide it. So V is the count of the values. So if you open the line where answer is equal to, yeah, this line 37. So because he is not accounted for repetitions, in the end, you have, so basically
removing the duplicates.
Yeah.
Oh, in the permission. Oh, that okay, that's good. So he will go to all the count values, whatever are there.
Right.
And then he, for each and every count value, he tries to find that factorial and is dividing that number with the answer. Huh. Okay. A very
And
smart
factorial is just an array of factorials from 1 to 20. That's just a preprocessed array of 20 numbers. So each place he will just divide that. The only thing I'm still trying to understand is, for I is 1 to n, he calls the DFS starting from I, and visited is...
he's using a bitmap for visited.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So that's very quicker and easy to compare, right? So that's why they're using it.
This is an interesting way to use visited. Okay.
Yeah. Or else you would have to use another array, and then the memoization would be very difficult to do, right? If you had a visited array. So because he's taking that also in memoization. So
how is it? I didn't get that. So memo, node, and visited. So visited is giving you a bitmap position.
Yeah. So it will be always different for how many number of the nodes you have visited, because if you see the bitmap, he's mapping each and every element, because we have the length of only 12, so we can fit in an integer. Integer is usually 32 bits, right? So you can fit that. So whenever for each and number visited, that bit will be marked as 1. Okay, so you can always form a number of it, and that number will be always unique for all combinations, and therefore they are using that.
Okay. So typically, how is memoization done? I've never done memoization for a DFS before. Is this a standard way?
Yeah, it is very standard. You just have, in this case, whatever the input parameters are changing a state, you just use those and form that much number of dimensional array.
Okay.
And
so I see. So if the visited was not bounded by 12, then would this have?
No, it would not have. If it would have
Yeah,
been
right?
more, then we'll have to find a different way of doing it.
In that case, how do you memorize?
So it depends on what we are looking for.
Okay. Okay.
It's very difficult to visualize now because it will be very
But
difficult
is
to
that
do it
also
right.
a two-dimensional array when you memorize for DFS in a standard way like that?
Yeah, it's exactly the way they are doing it.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Yeah, so essentially the whole solution is finding factorials. Then for every I going from 0 to n, call the DFS starting from that I. Then count. What does he do? He count. He is doing. Yeah, I didn't get that part very well. Where does he calculate the count properly? Count he is doing for x in A count. Would he update the count elsewhere? No.
He's updating the count is a map, right?
But where does he work with it? I'm also trying to see. So he does count dot put for
So in the
x.
count, he is actually just putting all the values from whatever is getting from A. So he's trying to find the frequency.
Yeah, if it is first time visited, you add, will be 0, and otherwise if again visited, then he's adding +1 to it, right?
Yeah. So for each and every number in A, he is trying to maintain a frequency count of that number.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it. Just a frequency count for all the.
Yeah.
It's a very smart way of doing Java, I think. In one line itself, count dot get a default response.
Yeah. Okay.
So this solution is much better because it's n square into 2 raised to n factorial.
Yeah, can we discuss
2 raised to n, yeah.
Yeah, so why do we say that? So n square times 2 raised to n.
2 raised to n is for the DFS, right? Because we are using a memoization.
Okay.
So 2 raised to n, what it says is the states in total, and each state has up to n children.
Okay, so then n square is because we put every pair in the adjacency list in the beginning, but aren't those steps one after the other?
But they are for.
Why is it multiple?
N square.
No, for every element, like whatever we are generating, for that we'll have 2 raised to power n branches, right?
So then permutations in general, you're saying is n times 2 raised to n?
Yeah, so the whole of it, because if you are saying, if you look at the line number 30 and 31, so that is where the DFS is happening. So DFS itself is 2 raised to n, but it is happening for n times. So therefore n into 2 raised to n, that is what he's saying, correct? So that is one thing. And then at the end he's saying each state has up to n children to DFS. Okay, that is one thing I am not clear.
Either you take it or you don't take it, right?
So, but that will be 2 raised to n, no?
Yeah, why That's what I'm not getting.
So he is evaluating again this equation from 1 to n. So after doing mathematical, what is it? He is obtaining n square. There has to be intuition for that, right? It's mathematically.
To me, it seems like it is n square plus 2 raised to n. Either you take or you don't take. And then after that, again, some division, some parts for the division. But still, it doesn't go beyond that. That's how it looks
It won't be n square plus 2n, right? Because see, if you look at the line number 30, can you scroll up a bit, Shashank? Sorry. Yeah, see here on line number 30, see what you're trying to do, you're going to a DFS, but you're going for each and every node.
N times the DFS.
So n into 2 raised to n is clear because DFS will be 2 raised to n, no?
Either you take it or you don't take it.
Yeah, and then you have memoization there. Memoization should help to some extent. Okay. Yeah, so that at least will be n into 2 raised to n if we assume that DFS is 2 raised to n. Okay,
Okay.
if you're doing it for all, but then the other n, I'm not getting why.
Which one there? Other n? Oh,
because
okay.
it's n square to n, right? So he's saying for in total, and each state has up to n children to DFS.
Okay, so now it's clear why it's n times 2 raised to n, but why n square we don't know yet.
This value again from 1 to n.
Okay, so the combinations formula, Shashank, when you say for summation k equals 1 to n, right? So now, okay, k we can actually leave it apart for some time. So it says a combination of c k to n, right, and c2 to k. So that is the way you will always divide the combination, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So then usually if it is c k to n, you will always get n square, and c to k will always be 2 raised to n, right?
2 raised to power n, yeah.
So then why that first c k to n? Okay.
Out of n, I will have comments. Let's see. The time complexity approach should be n cross n to where n total and each node has n children to DFS. This. Why each state has n children to DFS? Where n cross further, we don't get that understand. Then the DFS considers some of bit hard to.
If you go through it, we'll get it. But yeah, let's not do it now, right? Let's move to the next solution, I would say. Next problem. Yeah.
So this is like single element in a sorted array. They are given a sorted array consists of only where every element appears exactly twice except for one, which appears exactly once. We have to find the single element. And follow up is like, so yeah, one is like hash map, right? New frequency. Another O of n would be like take the XOR, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you are saying the non-follow versions, right?
Yeah, non-follow version. Yeah.
Okay, so if you do a XOR or maybe
hash map.
But XOR will still be O of n solution, linear solution, and if we just do O of one comparison, then also we should be able to find it, right? Okay, so both should work. So they are very trivial. So then why then?
They're using binary search, kind of focusing us to go to in that direction.
Okay.
So what was the XOR solution? Like XORing each element by its next element, and at the end, what is left is the
XOR of two numbers is always 0, so they'll nullify each other.
and we'll keep adding. So at the end, whatever the answer is will be the number which is unique.
Yeah, we keep on XORing every time. So each and every number.
And we keep on adding, right?
No, we don't add. We just keep on XORing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, XOR result will be the number.
Right.
XOR of numbers is 0 and XOR of different numbers is 1.
Yeah. So
So
now.
with binary
And how would you do with the hash map? Hash map is just like you will keep the count of numbers,
Yeah, the
like
frequency
2 and 1.
Correct.
Generate the frequency and just check those frequencies.
Yeah, additional space. So, but that would be more helpful if it's an unsorted array. But now it's sorted, then actually it doesn't make sense to use a hash map also because extra space, and we could do in still O of n, right? We can use other methods to do that.
Yeah, can I ask a question here? If it would not sort it any other way except hash map and XOR, do we have any other way?
Yeah, array indexing method is also there.
Oh, but it depends on the numbers again, what the numbers are inside. Okay.
No, indexing won't work. No, you don't have the range within the size.
Yeah, so we'll have to check if it is there in the size, then you can.
Yeah. So coming to binary search, I mean, I couldn't like first think of binary search only when I just saw this log of n. I just thought of something. So we can play with the sizes here, right? Because the odd one out element, that would make the size of the segment as odd, right? So let's say you apply binary search and the mid comes out to be 3. Okay, then we have to basically take a call, like where to go, to the left or to the right. So you have your mid, right? Your 3. Now what we can do is we can compare this mid with mid minus 1 and mid plus 1. If either of it is equal to the mid value, then it is the duplicate. Okay. And then, like, I'm just thinking loud, you can also find the size, right? So you know the end and you know your start and you know the mid. So if your end minus mid is of even size, then basically you're saying that all the elements are in pairs, right?
But here, left and right, both you will have 4 and 4, right? Mid will be 3. So there'll be 4 elements on the left and 4 on the right. So how do we make a decision?
Wait. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
annotated, that will be better. Take the same example.
Yeah. Again, I don't see that annotated option.
Like he's saying, like we will check like if the mid element and the element previous to the mid is same, then it means like everything till that point is perfect, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see that option?
Yeah. Like I have coded in that way.
If you click
I'm
on the screen,
the annotate option.
if you click on the screen and then you look on the top, don't you see it?
I see gallery view. I see exit full screen.
Oh, I see, I get it. So basically, you're saying that you look at the number of numbers after finding the mid. So in this case,
Okay,
you
let
will.
me make you. Okay, can you make co-host Harshit, Shashank? Oh, I am the one, right? Okay, sorry. Let me make you co-host.
Yeah. So something like that. RK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Harshit, try again.
Understood. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I actually was talking to him about the. Yeah, go ahead. Was it hello or RK?
Yeah. So I'm still not able to. I think hello also has the same idea, right? So you can carry on.
Oh, okay. So what I'm saying, like first we will try to find the middle element. Like the middle element is odd number, like is odd index or even index. If it is an odd index, then I will check whether the middle element and the number before that is same.
Hey Karthik, Clayton, AJ, good morning.
Just a second. I will try.
Hey, good morning.
Okay, fine. Yeah, what happened? Are you guys there?
Just a second.
Do you need help for? I can annotate over here if someone wants.
Or can you share if you want to share this?
Shashank, are you talking to someone here?
No, I'm saying if Hello wants to share.
Assume that we have 7 numbers in total, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the index will be 0 to 6, and the mid will be the 3.
Mm-hmm.
Or 4.
Right.
No, 3 only.
Or else take this example, what is in the screen, example 1, and then explain it so it will be clear.
Okay, yeah, I will try to explain with the help of this.
So do you want to share your screen? Is that what?
Can I simply share the solution? I am finding it difficult to explain it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Let me take an
He's shared it in the chat. Okay. Shashank, sorry, you have to do that.
No. So, paste it here.
I think it's
So he's checking.
it's in Java.
As long as start not equal to end, he's just checking whether it is a AND operation he's doing to check whether the set bit or not, right? I mean whether it's equal to 1.
Sorry for interrupting. And when we use the AND operation, what do we check? AND 1.
Guys, can we brainstorm a bit? I'll share my screen and just we'll write few examples and then can we move to the code? If everybody
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you screen.
Yeah. Give me a minute.
Hey, is Nick having a question here?
Sorry? Yeah, I wanted to ask why AND 1. Probably it's like a modulo 2, yeah? No?
Shall I mute everyone and then you unmute yourself? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Harshit.
Yeah, so this would be the mid, right? 3. Okay. So what I was thinking, just find out the sizes of first this segment and this segment. Okay. No. Yeah. First, fine. Let's go for the negative case. As in, let's say you have this occurring twice, right? So either you can have a 3 at this position or you can have the other one at this position. So let's figure out that first, and then you find out the size. So size would be like end minus mid. Okay. End minus mid plus 1. Right. So 3 minus 0 plus 1. Yeah, plus 1. So and this would give you the size of this segment. So in this case, it would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 minus 3 plus 1, which is 4, right? So basically, I get to know that this segment is of even length, right? So I cannot have any singly occurring element in this one. So I would go to the left. I would go to mid minus 1, this part. So just this then I can build, like, this is the intuition behind doing binary search. Does it make sense?
So do we check like suppose like the mid element is at 3. So now we have to check on both the sides, whichever is equal or not. So I
Right.
think
So
before deciding on the length, we have to see which side is my unique element. If it is not there on both the sides, then we have our answer. But if it is matching on the right side, then we get the length of the right subarray. But if it is matching on the left side, then we get the length of the left subarray and decide
right.
which side to go on. So if it is matches on the right side and my right subarray is even length, then I know that it won't be possible to have a unique element on the right. And if my so then I will go on the left. But if my matching element is on the left, then if and that is even, then I'll go on the right. So whatever size we have a match on, we check the length of that side only, not and decide how to go.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. Yeah, hello, did you do you concur to this, or you had something else?
I did not like properly listen to your solution. I'm just like writing something in the comments, so I did not focus so much. Can you repeat? I will try to understand.
I joined late. Can you share the question number?
Sorry.
I joined late. Can you share the question number?
It's 540.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So, what do you guys think, Santosh?
Yeah, it makes sense, right? So first, what you're trying to say, you're trying to take the midpoint. In this case, you have marked that 3, right, which is on the third index, and then you're trying to find if the left of it is a pair or the right.
Right.
In this case, the right is a pair, correct? So then you're trying to find the distance from end to that mid, and then you're seeing if it's odd or even, and based on that, you're taking a decision whether to move to the other side.
Yeah. Cool.
So mid -1 up to that size you are checking the left, right?
I am checking for the side in which the pair is. So let's take another example.
So the size will always be taken from mid to end or from beginning to mid.
Right. Depending on whether the pair is.
So even if you take from one side, that is fine, because if one side is odd, okay, you know that your answer lies there. Correct.
No, always be... if my match is not there, like I'm not considering the mid. I mean, if my if suppose mid is 3, and on the left of mid we have a like 3. It's, for example, it was 2, 3, 3, and some other values. That time, if you take the value size from mid to end, then it will be odd, but it is still. So if you have like 2, 3, 3, and some other numbers 4, 4, 5, 5.
Yeah. So the idea is to close off this segment, like where these 2 3s are belonging to, depending on the length. So here the mid would be what? This would be this 3, right?
That 3, yeah.
Second one. So you check with the left and right side. So here you get a match on the left side. Now you find out the size from the starting to the mid. So that would be mid minus start plus 1, which you get as even. So even number of elements means that all are in pairs. So then you move to this side from 4 to this one.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And always, for comparing the size, you should always look for one end only, either the start or the end. That should be sufficient.
Yeah. Right. Any one thing would be.
Any one thing is okay. Yeah.
Because if you'll get one as even, the other would be odd, and we have to move towards the odd side.
Yeah. But one thing, if you just encounter such problem, and if you look at it, it's a sorted one, everything looks very easy, controllable. It's not, right? It's very difficult.
Yeah.
And the difficulty can be only solved by using this technique, the way you are explaining. It's very important one.
Yeah.
I don't think so there is any better way of doing this. There might be more complex ways of doing it, but this is at least easy to follow. I'm not saying it's very easy, but at least easy to follow.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly couldn't think of binary search unless I saw that login thing. I was thinking of a 2-pointer thing, like normal OF and traversal, apart from the XOR approach.
Right. Yeah, but when it is sorted, it will always come that people will push you there. And if you don't do that solution, then it will be almost a waste of your efforts, right? So that is always there, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but this breaking down is much better, and at least to some extent, surely understood. But the implementation will still be more trickier, right?
Yeah. I see he was doing with some indices, so that can also be done instead of just finding the sizes. Okay, let's take code.
Harshit, are you done or like? Yeah, Shashank, can you share the screen and copy the comments, like last 4 comments from the chat?
Yes. Oh, so many fast examples.
Last 4 in the pairs.
Last 4 is
sorry, 1 1 2 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 3 3 and 4, and after that 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 is written from there. These are like there are more 4 like similar to this. Another copy, another 4 above this.
okay. So total should I copy? Or
Yeah, copy everything. It's fine.
that is what I was doing.
Then we will remove first 4.
Are you on phone? Hello?
No.
You can't share it because then it will be more easier for you to take the control, right?
Anyways, I have copied it.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
Okay.
You can have remote access if you want. Hello.
It's very slow.
Because if you ask him and then he won't understand your request, right? So it might be
Can you remove from 35 to 38 everything?
35 to 38, remove it, right?
Yeah.
35 to 38, okay.
Now press enter after 37 line, 39 and 41. Like basically 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 is representing index.
Should I press
after
now?
37 hours. Enter also.
After every 2 lines, just press enter.
Come again?
After every 2 lines, like so one line is actual data, another line is the index of that data.
Okay. This is fine, right?
Yeah. So if we observe that line number 36 is the elements given in the array and 37 is the index. Like this is the positive case. Like first half does not contain single element. So if you observe here, first half is perfect. Like 0 to middle of this array is 3. Up till 3 everything is perfect. So if we see 3 index is an odd element. If we see here, in case of odd, we have to check middle and middle minus 1 element is perfect or not, is equal or not.
But third index is an
element. Like index 3 is an odd element, right?
Okay, index 3. Okay, yeah. Number.
Line 37 is trying to follow. Okay.
Yeah, index 3 is odd. So in case of odd, as I observed that if first half is perfect, then in that case, mid and mid minus 1 will be equal, right?
Mid and mid minus 1.
Yeah, so if they are equal, you mean to say that you ignore the left side, correct?
Yeah, including the mid element. Yeah. Now my start will be mid plus 1. Now I will go for the even case, even positive case where first half is perfect. So it means that like in case if you see 42 example 42, 43, 42 is a array and 43 is the indices. If we see here the middle element is 4, which is even number. In case of even number, mid and mid plus 1 should be equal if the first half is perfect.
Okay.
So from there we can say that the start should be the middle element, right? As I have written in the code. In case of, yeah, if we see 20 from 23, it's for the, if the mid is even, right? So if the mid is equal to mid plus 1, then I'm saying start is equal to mid, because I don't know mid plus 2 may not be exist. So in that case, I just take the start is equal to mid.
This is for checking.
Yes. Like we can also use modulus to or like.
Got it. This is good. So if it is odd, then you are checking if mid equal to mid minus 1. Then you go on the right half of the array. Otherwise, you go on the left half.
Yes.
Okay. And
like I find the pattern from there itself, like by looking into those array.
Okay. Yeah. So you are saying that the way Harshit was explaining, in order to avoid that the size on the left side or right side, you are doing it this way. Okay. Makes sense.
Yes. Like we can see the clear pattern, like we can see this pattern clearly from these examples. Like if someone want to re-explain me or want to like ping me offline on the like Discord, or I will explain you.
You can explain it here also if someone has a question, right?
Yes, I will re-explain it. I will try to re-explain. If I'm unable to do so, like I will take it later as well.
No issues, but if someone has a question, they can ask. Yeah, Deepali, go ahead.
On line number 17, can you explain again what is this mid and 1 doing? Because I just tried the solution. As you explained, I was trying to shift my start to mid minus 2 and vice versa, like mid plus 2. But that index may not be there. So I'm getting like some infinite loops and all. I tried to handle it, but I could not. So I think this mid and 1 is doing some trick here.
This is just a binary operations. How you represent.
So bit. Yeah.
Can we replace it with modulus 2 for now, Shashank? To avoid
so
confusion.
bit and 1 is nothing. It's just checking the last bit is high or not. That will make it even or odd.
Right.
Which is odd.
So whether the mid is on the even or odd. So based on that, he's trying to check if the left side is has all the pairs and or the right side is having all the pairs.
Yeah. This is for checking even and this is for checking odd. That's it.
Basically verifying the significant bit as a 1 or 0.
So if my mid is on the 4th index, then this will be 0.
Yes, because
4 is even, so it will be 0.
So it will go to the else part and then check against the right element.
Yeah. So what is saying in the else part, if your mid and mid plus 1 are same, then it means it's a normal one. Right. So the other side is the normal side. So you don't.
So normal means there is no missing element there.
Missing, yeah.
Line 24. Why are you checking mid plus 1 and not mid minus 1?
Yeah, good question. Like if you observe, like in the chat, the second last pattern 1 1 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 4 and 5 and 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Right. In case of if the mid is even number, in that case we have to check the next one, because the next one will make the pattern.
Yeah.
And in case of if the mid is odd, we have to check the previous number that is making the pattern.
Yeah, this is also a good way of doing it. But the only thing when you are doing the binary search in the while loop, you are saying start is not equal to end. That's something I don't
Less than
understand. Yeah, it should have
Yeah,
been
yeah,
doing that, right?
yeah, yeah. I will explain why I write this logic. Like, I know like the total number of elements will always be odd, right? And if the number is 1, it means the start is equal to end. It means like my middle is also the same element.
Okay, because you are actually not crossing, but you might cross over, right? Okay, but the way you are using your mid plus and mid minus 1, you are not using the mid plus 2 and all that. Okay, so
Yeah,
therefore you are not going to overcross.
it's guaranteed that start and mid and end has at least a difference of 1.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
when
this is
start
perfect.
and end will come, I will let you.
Yeah, this is a good way of doing it, because if you understand the whole thing, it's fine. But if you try to follow the standard of templates of binary search, it's not the way it is, right? So it's a modified version of a template of a binary search. So therefore, it is not very intuitive. But yeah, this might be a very optimized way of using it here.
One thing to note in the first solution, which is written in Python, I'm not sure how Python works, but line number 5 can cause an overflow, and this might be an interview question also. Because so this was a known bug in Java's binary search. They used to do low plus high for a large array. If the value which needs to be found was on the higher side of the index, it used to plus those two index, and it used to do an integer overflow.
Correct. Yeah, so that also is not a part of the normal pattern, right? Shashank will modify that. It will be low plus high minus low divided by 2, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. You never do this in the interview, because then you'll go in a different direction. That's right.
Could these people ask binary search for this specific case only?
Absolutely, yeah, that's good. Yeah, hello. Your solution is good. Yeah, that is. But if you could make it a bit like the standard way of doing it, then it will be very easy for everyone to remember also, right? Yeah. And if possible, just share the solution in the chat.
Yeah, means my go-to approach of finalizing the solution while practicing is one which is very clean, not very deviated from standard one, because then I tend to make less mistakes when I'm writing it very quickly.
Exactly, yeah. Then you have very good hold on the what you're discussing with the interviewer, right?
Yeah, but see, for binary search, you can have many patterns. There are like many patterns for binary search. So it's advisable to stick to what you feel comfortable with. Yeah. Hello might be comfortable with this. We are like more fluent with the one,
yeah,
the
but
third
see,
one project.
that is right. But if you say while start is not equal to end, that solution will be very difficult to come up with, right?
Yeah, I get your point. I am in the
This
same.
This is not a very standard one, I would say. But he can modify that to a standard one.
Yeah, true.
One more point, like it will work with less than also.
Okay. Yeah, if it works, then it's good. Yeah, absolutely. It should actually. Only I'm saying that if you tweak it, and if you see all the test cases are passing, then yeah. Yeah, but this is one good approach. I would say, yeah. You actually go look whether it's odd and even when your mid is, and then based on that you can find if it is having a pair, and if it is not having a pair, you return mid itself, right? Because that is the element what we are looking for. Or else then you'll have to just tweak your start and end. Yep, cool. I think, yeah, you share the solution, this one, or even if the standard one, whatever you feel comfortable in the Discord, so it will be good for others to follow.
Like, what is that overflow thing? Overflow concept? I didn't get that. But would someone please explain that overflow concept?
Yes.
Can I explain what is the can I explain it with respect to the Java?
Yeah, any language it's same only. Go ahead.
In Python we don't have any problem, but C++.
Oh yeah, you are right.
Just.
I think Python should not be allowed for programming.
Or else we all have to learn Python, I think. Then.
कि
For
Python
interview, it's a bit easy. I mean,
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, explain that.
hello
Karthik
is
has a question, right? Hello or Dev? Someone explain him that.
Yeah. So like, let's assume your integer can hold only 0 to 10 numbers, right? We will come to the actual practical use case, but I'm just taking a smaller data set to easily understand this. Now you have declared an array of 10 size, and it has number 1 to 10 in it, right? So it would be indexed with 0 to 9. So let's say you are searching 9 or 10. So your binary search at some point of time, high and low would be greater than 5, both of them. So when you do high plus low, they would be greater than 10. So what happens in normally languages like Java and C++, they are represented by bits. So what happens is when number overflow, what happens is their additional bits get truncated and the highest bit gets set high, which represents actually a negative number in their number system. So what will happen is 5 plus 10, let's say 6 plus 9, it will make 15. So till 10, it can hold the number, and because it went beyond 10, it will represent something like -5 or -10, something like that. So that overflow it will cause a negative number. The mid will become now negative, and that will cause a lot of exceptions everywhere while accessing the array. So in reality, actually the range of integers in different languages are different. In Java, it's around approximately 2 billion. I'm not sure in C++ how int long are there. So depending on its 32-bit or 64-bit, these values change. But simultaneously, these languages also normally, if you see in C++, size, the type of size is unsigned int. So you can declare an array, given that your hardware supports and everything, of course, you can declare an array as long as the maximum value that intends to. So in those scenarios, when you have very huge arrays you are working on, it can overflow. And the problem would be this bug is hard to debug, and it will become very costly if it goes to production.
Oh, okay.
yeah. Then we can move to next. Yeah. So next is like you have to reverse a linked list. Linked list is given, and the reverse is this. So this is trivial, like now it's become hello world kind of.
Okay,
right.
So you have been doing it therefore, yeah. Okay.
No, everywhere like reverse. I mean this is for linked lists.
Right. Yeah, but okay. Are there any variations in this one? Okay.
No, it's a pure raw one. I mean, without any flavor, direct. yeah. Like
there's linked list too when you have to reverse a portion of the linked list.
Yeah, then it becomes more trickier.
Like
this is a ZOR-based approach. Like I'm not sure if that is applicable to discussion also.
Which one for the reverse linked list?
Yeah, you apply ZOR to the references and then it somehow get reversed. So I'm not sure which is that question. I forgot actually. It's linked list only.
Oh, got it.
ZOR to references.
References.
There is a question for linked list in the LeetCode itself where we have to calculate some ZOR using the. I mean, ZOR will be given and you have to get the
No, not references. I think somehow value something. I forgot actually. Sorry. Maybe let's not discuss that. It will confuse.
But I have seen that. Okay. I'm not sure. Like,
okay, let's go to this one. So it says we have to reverse the list, right? So you are using the 2.2 what do you say pointers, right? The prev and current, they both are pointers. No? Okay. So the 2 pointers, and then you are also using another pointer which is on line number 11.
11, yes.
Total, even if you ignore the 11 one, it is 2 pointers.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, if we ignore. So
will they ask us, can we do it in a single pointer like that? Is it possible
There
to do it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Then recursion and then stack if you use. I think.
Something like that. Right? Okay. Okay. Let's not go there. So let's follow this one.
Yeah. So here, like, I mean, initially my pointer is at 1, current pointer, right? And your next node will point to 2.
Yeah, but the previous is none, so it is null.
And so now you break that and connect it with 1. You connect this 1. And your previous was none. Now previous will point to this because current was here. And your current will point to this, right? And your next node was here.
And so 1 is actually pointing to null now in that case. So that link between 1 and 2 is gone.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the link between 1 and 2, which is over there, that will be removed, no?
This one will be cut off.
Yeah, this will remove. Okay.
And then again, same thing, like this will point to here and break will point to this. And but whenever current point is, the next node will hold. Before current pointing, this next node will hold this. So that this will hold.
And 2 will be pointing to?
Previous will point to current. Previous will point to 2 and current will go to 3 and next node will be at 4. And in the next iteration, next node will come here, right? And this will this and previous will go here and current will go here. Yeah, but recursion, that's a good one, like single pass.
But this is the most efficient way of doing, because we are not using a recursion stack and all that, right? So it's an iterative version and using only 2 pointers. Okay.
Yeah, I remember there was a time when this solution used to give me a hard time.
Yeah, exactly. Now, because in every problem, this is a sub problem, right? Yesterday only order, what do you say? Reorder list. So this is again a sub problem for that. And many problems you find this as a sub problem. So now it's like you need API, you can say, kind of this.
Yeah. So I was asked this question when I was giving my interviews for internship at Quora. So I did not come up with this iterative one. I came up with a recursive one. And then the person wanted me to get this done iteratively.
So if you do a recursive one, which is slightly difficult, then they want us to do the easier one.
Yeah.
Okay, either of it. So we need to be ready for both.
Yeah, now at least we are ready for this. Yeah. We should be, yeah.